This is a recording of the Highfields Caldecote East-West Rail public meeting held on Tuesday, the 18th of May. Purpose of the meeting: to offer a summary of the Caldecote Parish Council East-West Rail Action Group, to listen to comments and answer questions as best we can, to encourage everyone to fill in a consultation feedback form. The agenda is quite straightforward. It's a presentation followed by a question and answer session with you, the participant. Who are East-West Rail? Created by the Department of Transport. Purpose is to deliver the Oxford to Cambridge Railway. They report directly to the government. East-West Rail reports to the DfT, who make orders to facilitate works. For example, the Network Rail, East-West Rail Bicester to Bedford Improvements Order 2020. This has been in the news recently. It's of the order of £720 to £760 million. The normal avenues of complaint do not exist. Responsibility starts and ends with the government, just like HS2. Our MP, Mayor, County and District Councils and Councillors are all just consultees, just like each and every one of you. They will fill in the same forms as you. They have no direct powers to influence the outcome of the consultation. They have not been briefed any more than you or me. They can lobby on your behalf, something our MP has done at length to help move the station at Camborne to the north. Why has this corridor been chosen? The preferred route option E had been selected in 2020 following East-West Rail's company's consultation on the 5 route option areas between January and March 2018. These route options were selected following earlier consultation on the route corridors via Sandy. The route was the favourite among people who responded to East-West Rail's non-statutory public consultation on route options held in early 2019. It will link stations in Bedford and Cambridge with communities in the Thamesford and Sandy area and Camborne. While some trains are already running between Oxford and Bicester, this consultation is about more than the alignments through our village. They want your views on how you will use the trains, what you will use the trains for, and your views on the planned infrastructure implementation. For the infrastructure development, they have divided the East-West Rail route into 6 sections to help focus on the most important questions in each area. This meeting is primarily about the implementation of a small part of Section D, Clapham Green to the Eversdens. That's this yellow box over here. They want your comments on Oxford Bicester improvements, one on the Bletchley and Marston Vale line improvements again, how it goes through Bedford, the bit that impacts us most, which is this Clapham Green to the Eversdens, this part here, Harleton to Hawkston, and then straight into Cambridge. So Clapham Green to the Eversdens. Clapham Green is located to the north of Bedford, the alignments being between 27 to 29 miles long. Short list of 5 alignments. I think there were 9 originally chosen. The ones that came out of that, the short list, is the yellow one. All the alignments are referenced to this yellow line here. There's a red route here which goes up north and goes off north of the 428, stays north of the new 428 that's going to be, drops down just before Caxton Gibbet, drops down to South Camborne station. There's a light blue one here, Route 6, which is the most direct one and the shortest one. It comes through from Bedford, through St Neots, cross country to South Camborne station, and then down and joins up down to Hawkston, right down here. Dark blue, very similar. This is alignment 1 to the red one. It follows the same route as the red one until it gets before Caxton Gibbet, and then it stays north of the 428 to a new station at Camborne North, really Natwell Junction. And then it actually drops down through us, through Highfields Caldecote, and then joins up down here near the Eversdens to the same alignments as the others. So to routes 2, 6, and 8 go to a South Camborne station. That's 60% of the routes that we're actually asked to consult on. Routes 1 and 9 go actually north and stay north, and then they drop down. Most of the press, and certainly Cambridge approaches et al., have latched onto the preferred alignments 1 and 9. That's these routes here. And the route approach to Cambridge to the north, which isn't actually shown on this map, but of course that's what they're actually trying to do, is to try and get this line to continue north and to continue to come into Cambridge as a northern approach. It's not something we're being asked to consult on. We are being asked to actually comment on the work that they've done on this northern approach. They've investigated it to see if their initial choice was the right one. The important point here is all of these alignments all approach Cambridge from the south. How have EWRail assessed the routes? 5 main assessment factors have been used: transport user benefits, housing and economic growth, cost and affordability, performance and safety, and the environment. These have led to the 2 preferred alignments, 1 and 9. Using these 5 assessment factors, the alignments are broadly similar. The transport user benefits, they're all within 2 minutes of the reference, with alignment 6 being the quickest. Housing and economic growth, all routes facilitate development north or south/west of Camborne. Cost and affordability, the cost differences, they don't really vary that much. Interestingly, 9 is actually the most expensive, and they've chosen that as the second most preferred alignment. Performance and safety, they're very similar if you look at the statistics that they've given you in the documentation. The environment, this seems to be the biggest difference. It seems to concentrate on the number of homes demolished, noise impact not calculated, visual impact at Highfields totally underplayed. The noise impact is interesting. You don't need to be a rocket science to realize that it's actually the more houses that you have and the closer they are to any of these alignments, the more impact they're going to have on people. Both of these alignments these preferred alignments come through Highfields. So the main difference between the 1 and 9 route through, which is from a North Camborne station, and the 2, 6, and 8 alignments through a South Camborne station, seem to be the perceived housing benefits of a North Camborne station and the environmental impact. Now, the housing is a myth. Having a station to the south doesn't stop them building a development in the north. Even their own documentation has stated that housing should not be a distinguishing factor if a development corporation is set up. This is happening. So that leaves the environment difference between the alignments. Where is Caldecote Parish? Sounds like a silly question. It consists of the original village to the south, which is actually down here on this map, and a newer part to the north called Highfields Caldecote. We're all quite familiar with this. We probably didn't really realize how big the parish boundary is. And the bit to the left of us is actually the Bourne boundary of their parish. To try and avoid confusion, we refer to Caldecote as the original village and Highfields for the northern part. This red arrow is interesting. Points to our village sign. These people over here and all the way down here, as you can see from the map, all the way down to this point here are actually part of the parish of Caldecote. How is Caldecote Parish impacted? All routes impact Caldecote Parish. North Camborne Station alignments 1 and 9 have the biggest impact. These are the emerging preferred routes. The red route correlates to the alignments 2, 6, and 8. They're common here. They follow exactly the same path. Alignments 1 and 9, the North Camborne station, correlates to alignments 1 and 9. These light blue areas are conservation areas. The main difference between all of these alignments are further back to the west between Bedford and the stations at Camborne. A 12 to 10 metre high embankment, 80 to 70 metres wide, trundles across the main entrance of the village, severing the residents to the north, these ones all the way down here, from the rest of the village, on a hill already 72 metres high. The viaduct is 12 metres high, that's 40 feet, where it lands on the south side, that's where it lands here. The embankment is 10 metres at this point here, which is the West Drive Highfields roundabout. South Camborne Station, the alignments 2, 6 and 8, they clip an unoccupied southwest corner of the parish boundary. Mitigation, interesting word. It's the act of reducing how harmful, unpleasant or bad something is. It's something you actually come across in planning a lot and in projects like this. Any development will have an impact. They will try and use mitigation. And it actually almost doesn't matter how small the mitigation is, as long as they seem to have done it. But in this particular case, on the whole of the alignments from the north of Bedford all the way through to the Eversdons, there are actually only 2 places, according to EWRail, after mitigation, there are only 2 areas on routes from either Camborne station that remain seriously impacted. They are Crow End, the Broadway at Bourne, and you can see here it actually comes through the road here in a cutting and comes down, crosses the drift, and then follows this route down to this viaduct across the B1046. And the other is that they actually say at Highfields, which is this point here, and Highfields Court, which is here. We have been asked to consult only on these 5 alignments, which boil down to a route for Caldecote Parish from either South or North Camborne Station. One route obviously impacts more people than the other one. What EWRail say after mitigation in their documentation? And this is comparing alignment 2, Camborne South, to alignment 1, Camborne North. Mitigation is an important word. They will probably consist of acoustic barriers. EWRail also point out that the heights of the viaducts and the embankments are the maximum. So at the Broadway Crow End, there are 7 houses demolished, 9 in total on this alignment, and they reckon another 5 houses impacted. Now they seem to have mentioning some noise standard in their documentation. It's the number of residential dwellings within 75 metres of the alignments. Now that's the alignments of the perimeters of the alignments, not actually from the centre line. So it's 75 metres out from there. Highfields, no houses demolished. They make a big thing about the number of houses demolished. But 4 in total on alignment 1. There's actually 5 because actually Potts Farm they can't count. There's actually 3 houses there, not 2. And they reckon on these same parameters of within 75 metres, an additional 7 houses are impacted. Bear in mind that this is actually on a 40-foot high embankment and viaduct. This is actually in a cutting. But EWRail have totally failed to factor in the 3 planning application around Highfields. So now we have a picture of Highfields at the top with Bourne Airfield development and Linden Homes developments overlaid. Down here is the West Drive roundabout, obliterated by the footprint of this alignment. The width of this embankment, if you measure it at this point here on the map to scale, because you can measure these things by scale, it's actually 110 meters. Only 90 meters is needed at this point, according to EWRail, where they've told me that it's 70 meters for the embankment, and then they have 10-meter perimeter either side of it, and then they put a fence up. It actually also turns out, and I couldn't quite work out why that's only 90 meters, in fact. It turns out that if you add the other 10 meters either side where they will demolish properties, if they fall within that, you get to 110 meters. And ditto, this is 130, and if you do the same equation. So these footprints have included the buildings that are actually going to be demolished. So if you actually go to their interactive map, and you drill down, you can actually see through these alignments, through to the map behind. You can actually see what buildings are likely to be demolished. Bearing in mind, though, this width here of this is 130 meters, and this here is 110. Well, a football pitch is 105 meters long, not the width, the length. This is tremendous size. If you take Linden Homes now, which is this new development, which is being constructed now, they reckon there's going to be about another 9 homes that are going to be demolished here. And of course, a lot more impacted because they're going to be very close. It may be possible to move this alignment slightly. It might well affect some of these other houses. You can imagine them moving that slightly to the north, and they would miss these houses. They would still, it doesn't stop them being as closer as anything to the railway line. If we go on to Bourne Airfield, it's impossible to move the alignments to cater for the Bourne Airfield development, consisting of both the countryside development of these 3,500 houses and the Aitchinson's Bourne Quarter Business Park, which is this EE2 area here. This whole field here at the top of Highfields was to be an open space, allotments, orchards, and more importantly, balancing ponds for the Bourne Airfield development, maybe our country park. These things here, they're called attenuation ponds. There's 3 of them. You can just about see this one here, and they're all to do with drainage. And we all know we're actually on clay around here, and we all know it doesn't really drain very well at all. This MU2 purple part is an interesting thing. It's a high density, 16 meters high, mixed housing and retail area. We believe 150 homes won't be built here. It also means the entrances to 2 communities will be visually and noise impacted. The current viaduct landing, which is just about here, also severs the entrance road to this development, as well as the C2C station here. Since this land opposite here is actually part of this residential development of 3,500 houses, it would be expensive for EWRail to buy, and the proximity of the housing at R29, that's these ones here, so you look at these R29, 30, 32 and 31, will mean considerable additional compensation. And I think there's even something being muted that some of these will not be able to be built because they're going to be too close to the railway. Reworking the drainage for the whole site will be expensive, and this questions totally the cost benefit of these 2 alignments, 1 and 9, coming through the top of Highfields. As of today, none of the developers have been able to contact EWRail. Highfields, Bourne Airfield, Angel Park. This is just a magnified portion of the impact these alignments 1 and 9 have on the Highfields. Again, this is the Aitchinson's development. You can see a bit more detail here, the Angel Park area, which is Linden Homes. These white parts are actually also housing. There's 140, I think, in total on this area. E2, this is the new Bourne Quarter high quality business park being developed by Aitchinson's. So The impact is seriously disproportionate at Highfields. If we compare the alignments to Camborne South versus alignment 1 Camborne North, as we did on the previously, same at the Broadway, the same number of houses demolished, 9 on alignment 2 in total. We've measured, best we can, that there are 9 homes within 75 metres, and there's a further 25 houses, or homes rather, within 200 metres. We have counted the number of homes within 75 metres and 200 metres as best we can. We don't know the impact on these, but the train through the Broadway is in a cutting. No such relief for Highfields. These 75 metres and 200 metres figures haven't been made up. It's not conjecture. EWRail seem to consider homes within 200 metres as being impacted and homes within 75 metres significantly impacted. The important part about these figures, as I understand it, these are from the perimeters of the alignments, not actually from the centre line. Highfields now, we find 9+ houses down here will be demolished, forgetting about what it does to countryside developments. There's 14+ on alignment 1 in total now. 53 houses are now going to be within 75 metres. A further 103+ houses within 200 metres. Does not include homes at Bourne Airfield. There's a big unknown about the impact on the countryside development. But if you add in the minimum 150 homes not built on the Bourne Airfield development, this route becomes untenable. I'm going to quickly go through the next 2 slides. I'll point out some features. Unfortunately, it's quite hard to read the details on these. This is a North Camborne to Evanston's core height alignment 1. Alignments 1 and 9 profiles are identical from Camborne North Station. So I've picked the area from Camborne North all the way through to the south to Evanston's, where it crosses the A603. The red line here is the proposed rail level. The dotted green line is the existing ground level. The scale on the right-hand side is the number of meters above sea level. The interesting thing about this is if you look at this is 80 meters high. These viaducts here are just where the viaducts are positioned across these profiles. They're nothing to do with the height, but this line, if you continue the height down, it's actually at 80 meters, and you'll see round about here it actually goes above 80 meters. Nearly 84 meters. This is the highest point along the line from Bedford to the Evanston's and beyond. 72 meters is actually higher than Chalk Hill, so 84 is really quite a high. It's worth looking at these little figures down here. These figures are the numbers of how many meters above sea level. These are the proposed rail level height, and this is the difference. So round about here, I think there's a 12.3 meters here, and if you look down here, I think there's a 10 or 11 meters down here. And down here, if we look at some interesting points, this is the viaduct coming across. This is the alignment where it hits. This is the East Viaduct with Wellington Way, I think, in the countryside. Here, this point here is where West Drive, Highfields Road is. This is the Highfields Farm Accommodation, they call it here. This will be where the woods are. And you'll see that the profile drops down, starts following the landscape. It's around about here. It's about 1.5 meters just above ground level. After obviously must be a dip there between us and Hardwick. This is where it crosses the Hardwick to Toft Road, which is almost at ground level. It's about 3 meters high at that point. It looks like it actually touches at one point. Again, it's a little bit higher above the landscape, but then again, when it comes to the B1046, it's actually almost touching the ground again. I think it's 0.5 meters at that point there. Then goes down, goes above these priority habitats here that which you're beginning to hear about now, and then of course it has to then go up when it gets to Little Eversden, just a little way up from the A603. It has to go across the viaduct, and then it has to go another viaduct to go over the A603 because their policy is to go over A roads, and that's why it's actually raised actually quite high here. In comparison, this is the South Camborne to Eversden's core height alignment. Number 6 I've chosen in this case, 2, 6 and 8, the profiles are identical. These figures here are the number of kilometres from Clapham Green, where it starts from. And of course, these are going to be different, have different figures here, depending on the different alignments and where they go. Again, here we got Camborne South. Now, interestingly here, this level here is 70 metres. This is where the railway is. It comes down. Now look at this here. It actually drops below ground level. So all the way through Broadway, through the drift accommodation, it's in a cutting. Then it has to follow the landscapes. There's a little bump there. There's a big viaduct here across the B1046 Toft Road. And then it drops down quite low, relatively speaking low. It's still 5 odd meters at this stage here, which just shows you how bad some of these figures are when they get to 10 meters. And then it peters out, and it actually goes a little bit below the ground here at the back of the start of the Eversdens, and it's 2 meters, 3 meters here. Then it has to start going back up again across these. There's a Bourne Brook. There's a brook there of some kind. I think it's Bourne Brook. There's a brook there, and then again across the A603 to finish off with the Eversdens. Just remember that this goes in a cutting. Nothing else is really above that. Smoke and mirrors, myths debunked. Housing. Much is made of the fact that it is easier to develop housing to the north of the A428. Any station north or south of Camborne will facilitate housing in the north or the south. It will take people just as long to travel from West Camborne to a north station as it would be for people in a northern development to travel to a southern station. There is as much development land to the south and west of Camborne as to the north, without the problem of navigating both the new dualled A428 and the old A428. Their technical document says that if a development corporation at Camborne comes into existence, then it should not be a distinguishing factor between the two locations. The government has already started the process of setting up development corporations as needed for the Ox-Cam arc. Diesel. Of course, the emerging green society we live in, diesel is seen as a backward step. But the truth is, electrification is costly, and if implemented, the cost-benefit ratio of East-West Rail fails. By 2040, there will be additional pots of money from the government to make the railways green. Freight. East-West Rail needs to make the railway freight compatible. That seems to make a lot of sense to me. This doesn't mean it will carry significant freight, but it could do. They operate 18 hours a day. They talk about a maximum of 24 freight trains per day in each direction. That's 1.3 an hour, but there are bottlenecks. Without significant investments, these figures can't be reached. For instance, the Hawkston to Cambridge section has 9 paths per day for both directions. That's 0.25 trains an hour in each direction. And that includes trains going down to London. Conclusion. Alignment 6, light blue. It's quicker and shorter. Surely that's what trains are for. It's cheaper once developer compensation is taken into account on alignments 1 and 9. Fewer houses demolished once the initial 9+ house properties at Linden Homes are considered. Alignments 2, 6 and 8 have no impact on the delivery of the 3,500 home Bourne airfield development. Alignments 2, 6 and 8 avoid having to rise up an additional 12 meters on a hill that is already 72 meters high, thereby reducing the disproportionate noise, visual and pollution impact 1 and 9 have on Highfields and its surrounding area. There is no advantage to follow the new A428 route since only a southern approach to Cambridge is offered. The alignments in order of preference 6, 2, 8, 1 and 9, north to north or south to south, i.e. a North Camborne station if a northern approach to Cambridge and a South Camborne station if a southern approach to Cambridge. Now, of course, we're not being offered a northern approach to Cambridge, so it doesn't make any sense to actually choose 1 and 9. In fact, since this presentation was done, I think our view is that the alignment and order of preferences should be 6, 8, 2, 1 and 9. There doesn't seem to be a lot of point to go north of the A428 if you're not going to approach North Cambridge. Of course, East-West Rail may come up with different alignments from a North Camborne station. We wouldn't like to second guess what they may be. Main issues and next step. The single most important issue for Highfields is the location of the station at Camborne. Feedback form. We encourage everyone to fill in a feedback form. Every form counts. You can answer as many or as few of the questions as you like. These questions directly relate to Caldecote Parish. Question 1 asks for your views on a northern approach to Cambridge. Question 38, rank your preferences for the proposed routes. We propose 6, 2, 8, 1 and 9. I think maybe we propose 6, 8, 2, 1 and 9 because we don't think going north following the new A428 is desirable unless you're going to approach Cambridge for the north, which we're not being asked to do. Explain why. In addition to the arguments presented today, you may wish to add anything particularly important to you, such as village approach ruined, loss of habitat and woods behind Angel Park, severing of footpaths, bridle paths, etc., including the priority habitats that are destroyed down past south of Toft. All these, the feedback form can be found online. You can download it, print it, and send it in. They'll also send you a form. There's a link in the post if you wish. It is to a free post address. More information and help on the feedback form will follow on the website, social media, and via leaflet drop. Thank you.